Good Monday afternoon to you. Hope your week is off to a great start. Thanks for joining Sports4CLE. We'll be joined a little bit later by Matt Dery of the Dery Brothers Tribecast. Tribe coming off a weekend sweep of the Tigers. They head to the Windy City to face the White Sox tonight. But we are going to talk plenty of Browns, and when we talk Browns, we like to do so with Browns beat reporter Mary Kay Cabot, some Jadeveon Clowney news. Mary Kay, what's the latest? What do you know about Jadeveon Clowney and where the Browns stand with trying to get him on board?
Well, they wanted to sign him really ever since he came into town 3 weeks ago on March 24th. But they need to have a comfort level that he's healthy. He needs to have a comfort level that this is the right place for him to be. So, I think it is progressing. I believe they do want to bring him back this week. And I think that, the goal is, at least right now, it appears that he's supposed to come in on Wednesday. It's not 100% written in stone, but that is the way that it appears right at this moment. And if that happens, if he comes back here, I do think he will end up signing with the Browns. I don't think he'll come here for a second time unless he's really serious about closing the deal. Now, maybe the trip back includes a physical and everybody just wants to make sure that he's healthy as well. But I think it just means that they are getting closer to getting this thing done.
And when you mentioned, he's coming off a meniscus injury, it's not like it's an ACL or something crazy like that. And this would probably be about the time that you could actually get a look at it and make sure he is healthy enough to get out there and be who he can be.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's important. Sometimes these things take a little bit of time, and logistically nowadays with COVID and everything, it's just not as easy to bring a guy in to get him the physical that he needs. So sometimes that process just needs to play out a little bit. But I do think that it's a great sign that he wants to come back. I do think that it means that there's starting to be a really good chance that he'll be a Cleveland Brown. And I've been saying this all along. I think it's a really good move. I think that they should sign him, and I think he will be a productive player for them.
The other thing that has come out is there are a couple of other teams interested in him, being the Ravens and the Colts. So that's it's just you really hadn't heard his name tied to other teams until the Browns got serious with this second visit. And I think the fact that there's a second visit, that kind of tells you the Browns are further along than the other teams.
Yes, I think so. But you also have to wonder if the delay in the visit doesn't have something to do with these other teams kind of maybe expressing a little bit of interest. Sometimes once a guy goes and makes that first free agent visit, then other teams realize that they have to get in on it too. It's just like if somebody puts a bid in on a house, all of a sudden there are 4 offers. So it could be something like that where it drummed up a little bit more interest. Now, the Ravens are going to be having Justin Houston from the Colts come in and visit them this week. Supposedly, according to ESPN, they're not going to sign any more free agents until after the draft. But I mean, really, if you get yourself into sort of a situation where someone else might sign a guy that you want, you might have to go ahead and sign him. So I don't know if this newfound interest from the Ravens and the who was the other team
Colts.
again? The Ravens and the
Colts. The Colts.
And the Colts. The Colts have always, the Colts have always wanted to perhaps re-sign Justin Houston. So maybe this is tied into that a little bit. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But you're right. The Browns have been the most aggressive in terms of trying to get Jadeveon Clowney here.
The other thing is when you get to be a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, I think that's important. The Browns weren't afraid to come after him early. They've been consistent. They wanted him last year. So I think that for a guy like Clowney, I think that's important. Is that the sense that you would gather as well?
Yeah, I mean, they really pursued him hard last year. Their 1-year offer was bigger than anybody else's, and their 3-year offer, their multi-year offer, was very, very competitive. So he knows that they want him and they really like him. And when they kind of sink their teeth into somebody, they go for it. I mean, look what happened with Takk McKinley. They put in a bunch of waiver claims. They tried to trade for him last year. Ultimately, the guy they wanted.
think it's the same thing with Jadeveon Clowney. They see something in him that they really like, not the least of which is his ability to set the edge and defend against the run. He is an elite run defender. I really think that, the fact that they went after him so hard last year is a factor.
So we'll shift gears a little bit. We'll get back to a little bit more on Clowney in a little bit. But Bleacher Report came out with trades that should be made before the draft. And this is kind of interesting. They have the Browns trading for Stefan Gilmore of the Patriots, and they haven't given up a third and a mid-round pick. What do you think of that? Gilmore's a guy that's a pretty good cover corner, getting up there in age a little bit, but there is a lot of skill set left in Stefan Gilmore.
Well, obviously, he is a premier cornerback, was NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 2019, I believe it was. And, I'm sure he still has plenty left in the tank. He's really great. He's amazing at grabbing interceptions, which is a wonderful quality to have. I think, you just can't have too many takeaways. It's the difference most of the time between winning and losing. So he would bring that to the table. Now, I didn't see this report myself. Are they speculating that they think this is a trade that should happen, or is this sort of a report that they think that this is something that could be in the works?
They think it's that the team's needs and that match up. Obviously, it would cost the Browns salary cap because you're going to have to pay a guy like Stefan Gilmore. So when you look at that, is that something you think the Browns entertain?
Well, from a financial standpoint, it might be a little challenging for them to have to do that, considering they're going to have to pay Denzel Ward. They're probably going to have to pay Nick Chubb. They're going to have to pay Baker Mayfield, Wyatt Teller. So not really sure if they want to shell out the kind of money it would take to get a Stefan Gilmore. But he definitely is somebody that if he is available, it would be worth taking a good long look at.
Let me ask you this. If it comes down to Jadeveon Clowney or Stefan Gilmore, which one do you think makes a bigger impact, given that, and I know this isn't the real world, but given equal things as far as salary cap hits go, which do you think has the potential to make a bigger impact?
Well, I don't think those things are mutually exclusive necessarily, because I think you can come up with a contract for Jadeveon Clowney that includes, it would probably be a one-year contract with a fairly low base and then incentives based on playing time, based on maybe making a Pro Bowl or sacks or whatever you come up with. You can sweeten the pot for him to get where he would like to be. So I just don't think that contract will break the bank. Therefore, with the way that the Browns are set up right now, I think they could find a way to make both of those things work.
Think about that. If you add Jadeveon Clowney and a Stefan Gilmore, you're pretty formidable on the defensive side of the football, adding those two pieces.
Oh yeah, that would make a huge difference. I think even one of those guys would make a significant impact and could be just enough that could get you over the top. Now, I don't have Stefan Gilmore's salary in front of me right now for the rest of his contract, but I'm sure it's got to be somewhere in the double-digit millions. So he's definitely not going to come cheap. But once again, if it makes the difference between getting to a Super Bowl or not getting to a Super Bowl, it's money well spent.
Yeah, and you can figure out the rest as the years go on. There will be a salary cap increase to help you take care of that. So Mary Kay and I are going to continue talking Browns, and we're going to shift gears a little bit. On the other side of the break, one of the guys that seems to not like the Browns very much tweets out something very interesting. Skip Bayless's take on if Jadeveon Clowney signs with the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back talking Browns football. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter, will rejoin us in just a minute. Mary Kay, let's take a look at this. This is from Skip Bayless, admitted Browns hater, if you will. And Skip tweets out, if the Browns sign Clowney, they become legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Mr. Skip is one of the guys who believes Clowney is still very, very talented. And Skippy points out that he recently just turned 28 years old, all of which is true. It's just kind of interesting that a guy that seems to like tweaking Browns fans and all of the dog pound coming out and saying Clowney would make them Super Bowl contenders. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, they are already pretty close to being Super Bowl contenders. I mean, if you can get to the playoffs and you can win a playoff game and get down into the final 8 and then improve your team in the offseason, then you are already a Super Bowl contender. But I do think that Jadeveon Clowney would help them and would add to the talent that they have on defense. I think he'd make a really nice 1-2 punch with Takk McKinley over there in place of Olivier Vernon. I don't necessarily think that he's going to shift the balance of power in the AFC North, but I think he would help. Again, he is an elite run defender. I think he'd really help against the Lamar Jacksons and the Kyler Murrays of the world when it comes to kind of containing those guys and setting the edge. So I like the move. I hope they do it at the right price. I think it would be great. I don't necessarily think that, that it's going to rock the whole NFL, but I think it would help the Browns.
Yeah, that's very fair. The other thing to keep in mind about this roster, it's really young. That's what is the beauty of where the Browns stand roster-wise. They have guys that are, for the most part, are still ascending and have not reached their peak years. So they made that playoff run with a roster that if you just leave it the same and leave it in the same system, is going to get better by the nature of being in the same system for 2 years in a row.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you just look at the offense alone. It really didn't come alive until midway through last season. So now they'll hit the ground right from the start. Should be significantly better, especially if Odell comes back healthy and, they find other new and creative ways to utilize different guys on the offense. I think the future is very, very bright with this offense. I think it'll be explosive right from the start. I think they'll go out knowing that they can score 30 points, 35 points anytime they want to. And I think that, I think that it looks really good for them on both sides of the ball from an age standpoint.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about what Andrew Berry has done is he's given longer-term contracts to younger guys, their second contracts, if you will, when players are hitting their prime. And that has been, part of the idea behind building this. Draft well and develop young players.
Absolutely. Now, having said that, and we've talked about this before, they're not super young at receiver right now, and we know that. We know that Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, they'll be 29 for much of this season, and then next year, obviously, then they'll be turning 30, both of them, in November. So I do think you have to start to look towards the future at that position sooner than later, but But for the most part, it's a roster that has a core of players in the prime of their career, and that's exactly what you want.
And, there's a lot of talk about, Odell Beckham Jr., will they trade him, won't they trade him? They have to listen to anybody that is interested in making an offer for him. Having said that, do you think there's any way he gets traded away coming off an injury when he's coming back trying to prove himself?
I don't really think so. I do believe that Odell Beckham Jr. will be on the team this year for some of the reasons that you just mentioned. He's coming off of a torn ACL, although he looks great. I mean, we have seen him on social media running, sprinting, lifting weights, cutting, doing all kinds of things. He looks amazing. I think there's every reason to believe that he will be back at full strength this year. Having said that, I do think that this is the year that if somebody really felt that they needed a guy like that to put them over the top and get them into the Super Bowl, and they picked up the phone, I think this time the Browns would at least listen. They would listen to it. Last year, they had no intentions of trading Odell. They really felt that they needed Odell and Jarvis to get them to the next level into the playoffs. This year, because of the structure and the money and everything else, I think that they would at least be a little bit more open-minded about it.
But having said that, again, let's make clear, you think he's on the team, and you think he's probably ready to have a pretty good year in conjunction with Baker Mayfield.
Yes, I do think that. I really do think that. I think that if he had been around for the second half of last season, I think that when the lights came on for Baker Mayfield, that Odell Beckham Jr. would have been the beneficiary of that, just as so many other guys were. I think he would have been part of an explosive offense. I think he would have been targeted plenty. And, I think he would have helped Baker light it up in the second half of the season. So I think those two guys together could be dynamite this year. I think they probably will be. And as I mentioned before, I think he will be on the team.
When you look at what Odell brings, that's a guy that can get deep, and that's a guy that you get the ball in his hands in space, and defenses have to get a little, well, more than a little. They have to be really concerned.
Yes, absolutely they do. He is a special player. He's a dynamic player. He obviously has a nose for the end zone. The only thing about Odell that, that I think he and Baker will need to work through a little bit is that Baker likes very precise route running. Odell is very creative. So therefore, I think they need to mesh their styles a little bit more, but I think they can get there. I mean, it's just a matter of each of them giving a little bit and just getting that timing down. And as Odell has mentioned so many times before, that happens in game in the heat of the moment. You really don't get that out on the practice field that much. So it's time on task. And I think that they would pick it up together very quickly.
Mary Kay Cabot and I are going to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we're going to take a look at where the Browns might look if they sign Jadeveon Clowney. What would they do with that 26th pick in the first round? Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports for CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with Browns beat reporter Mary Kay Cabot. So, Mary Kay, let's now Jadeveon Clowney reportedly getting ready to come back into Cleveland Wednesday, potentially to talk with Browns, meet with them. Let's say if the Browns do in fact sign Jadeveon Clowney, do you think they look at cornerback at 26, or do you think nothing changes? What does that do to the mindset and what they do with that first-round pick?
You know, I still don't think that it precludes them from taking an edge rusher there at number 26. Because if you have Takk McKinley and Jadeveon Clowney both on 1 year sort of prove-it deals for next year, you still have to be planning ahead and thinking of who is going to nail down that spot for the foreseeable future. So if one of those really good edge rushers is still there at number 26, I think you'd still have to look at that there. Yes, of course, if they don't make another move before the draft, I think cornerback is another place to look because even though they are counting on Greedy Williams to come back, you can't have too many good starting cornerbacks. And so therefore, I think that's another spot. As we mentioned before, you have to start planning ahead at receiver. So that is another area where you could look at. But they are not locked into anything. They have starters at every position and quality starters at every position right now. So I really do think that they can let the draft fall to them and find the most dominant player that they can find at a premium position at number 26.
Do you think there's a potential, if they really like a cornerback, an edge rusher, a wide receiver, and somebody that is projected to go in the top 15 falls to 18 or 19, something that wouldn't cost them other than that additional third-round pick or a sixth-round pick, a third and a sixth, do you think they could go up and potentially grab somebody who slides a little bit?
Oh, sure. And I think those conversations will take place leading up to the draft and on draft day. A lot of times what will happen is you talk to the teams in the days leading up to the draft that are, 5-6 spots ahead of you, just to see if they might be up for something, and you lay the groundwork for potential trades. You don't just all of a sudden on draft day have some light bulb go off over your head and you have no idea who might be interested in moving out of a spot. Andrew Berry will do all that legwork beforehand. He'll know exactly who might want to move back a little bit, who might want to move up a little bit, and they will have some things sort of ready to go in the event that one of their guys does fall to them or looks like he might still be available at 27 or 28 or whatever. So yes, that will happen. Andrew Berry is very aggressive. This is a very, very smart front office. They will be ready. And once again, you might not be able to put 9 players. They have 9 picks. You might not be able to put 9 players on your roster this year. So a little bit of wheeling and dealing would behoove them.
The other thing, how important do you think the upcoming season is for Joe Woods? A season ago in free agency and the draft, the Browns addressed some needs on the offensive side of the ball. This year, they've turned their attention to defense. And, in fairness to Joe Woods, he wasn't able to do a lot that he wanted to with the injuries to Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit. So the Browns' defense wasn't what I'm sure he envisioned it being as he was putting the plan together. How important is it, do you think, that they see the type of defense with Joe Woods this year with all that they're investing in it?
Well, I think Joe Woods will have a much easier time fielding a defense this year. Boy, he really had it rough last year. Guys were just in and out of the lineup, and it just started right from the very beginning with Grant and Greedy losing 2 of your starting 4 secondary starters. That's a tough way to start the season. And then just it kind of went on from there to the point where, they didn't even have Myles Garrett at 100% for the second half of the season. So I do think with all the pieces that they're adding, John Johnson, Troy Hill, Malik Jackson, Takk McKinley, and there will be more, I think it'll be a much better year for Joe Woods.
How impressive is it that they not only made the playoffs, won a playoff game, given what we've just detailed about that defense and how much that defense struggled?
It's very impressive. I mean, they had to plug guys in to spots that they were not used to playing. They had to be down to their 3rd and 4th nickelback. It was a very, very tough season, especially in the secondary. So I really think that Joe Woods will have plenty to work with this year. I think he'll have a lot of depth. He'll have, really, really good starters back. The safety rotation. I mean, if Grant Delpit is healthy, you've got a safety rotation of John Johnson, Grant Delpit, and Ronnie Harrison. I mean, that's a really, really good trio of safeties right there alone. I think they'll add to the cornerback pile, and they'll have something similar there. They can still use an upgrade at linebacker, I believe, and we know that they've been working hard on the D-line.
Is there a guy that you think, just when you look at what is laid out, is there a guy that you kind of look at and go, boy, he could really have a big year, kind of a breakout guy, just throughout, the entire team, not only defense? Is there a guy that you think is set up to have a really big year?
I think there are a number of guys that could happen with, but I would say let's look at some of those safeties. I think it sets up for one of those guys to have a really nice Pro Bowl season. Now, we don't know if Grant's going to come back 100% right from the start, but if he does, I think he'd be a really good candidate for that. I think the same thing for John Johnson. So those are a couple of places to look, and maybe even Ronnie Harrison. So those guys are set up for tremendous success. In terms of other guys that might have a breakout season, I do think if Odell comes back healthy from the start, and it looks like he will, I think he could really make a ton of noise in this offense and live up to his first round status and his Pro Bowl pedigree as well.
How big of a advantage is it that it's going to be the second year in a system for a number of these guys for the first time in their career? That hasn't happened, especially for the guys that have been longtime Browns.
Yeah, I think that'll really help. The person that will help the most, of course, is Baker Mayfield. I mean, he threw 20 touchdown passes against only 2 interceptions, after that first interception on his first pass of the game in Cincinnati that resulted in the Odell injury. After that, he was just dynamite, not because Odell was gone, but because everything kind of came together for him. Now they will build on that success. They know what he does well. They know how to utilize his weapons better. They know what he likes and doesn't like. He cut down on all those interceptions. So I think more than anyone, Baker will benefit from year 2 in this scheme.
The other thing is, he's got a consistent guy in his ear in Van Pelt. He's gonna Kevin Stefanski calling the plays, knows his strengths now. He doesn't have to kind of get a feel for that like he did the first part of this year. So that should also add to his comfort in the offense.
Yes, that's very important. And then I think another key to this whole thing is the fact that Kevin Stefanski has really asked everyone, his coaches, his players, his front office, everyone to go out and come back with something better than they left with. To not only sit with that loss to Kansas City, but to go add to your game in some way. For instance, Nick already said he'll do this. Nick Chubb is going to go out and he's going to work on his hands even harder than he did last offseason because he dropped a couple of passes in that Kansas City game and he was really mad at himself. I'm sure that next year, Kevin Stefanski will bring in more ideas from Bill Callahan and Chad O'Shea and Alex Van Pelt and add to the offense. I think that Baker Mayfield will work as hard as he always does in the offseason to be a better player than he was. So I think you'll see a lot of fireworks with this offense.
Last thing before we take another quick break, how big of a difference will it make that you actually will have OTAs, in theory, some of them, and training camp? Don't forget, this offense was never on the field until it was in a game. So I would imagine that is something else that will just help develop the understanding deeper into the playbook.
Well, I will say this. They have to still figure out exactly what the offseason is going to look like. When I wrote a story last week, I listened a lot to J.C. Treader on a conference call last week and to NFLPA Executive Director DeMaurice Smith. They don't want in-person OTAs. They don't want in-person mini camps. They want what happened last year because it helped them get to the finish line safely. They were healthy, and they made it all the way to crowning a Super Bowl champion. That's what they want again. So I don't know that there is going to be much more in-person work than there was last year. And I think that they are also going to try to bring those preseason games to the table and see if there's any way they can cut back on those.
It's very interesting. And again, that's all to be determined with the with the new contract and the television deal. Those are all details to be ironed out. Mary Kay Cabot and I are going to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Baker Mayfield is the only one of 14 quarterbacks taken in the top 15 or top 5 in the draft the last several years who's still on the same team. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that. Sports for CLE will be right back talking Browns football.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. So 14 quarterbacks were taken in the top 5 picks between 2009 and 2018. Only Baker Mayfield is still with the same team. That is after Sam Bradford was traded to the Carolina Panthers a couple weeks ago. Sam Darnold. Let's welcome back in Mary Kay Cabot. Sam Bradford was another one of those who is no longer in the league. Mary Kay, that just shows you how risky and how difficult it is to identify quarterbacks, especially top 5 of the draft.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I was just stunned by that statistic to think that of all those top 5 quarterbacks in that 10-year span, that Baker is the only one left. And this offseason was particularly hard on that group, as 4 of them were kind of dumped by their original team, basically. And one, Matthew Stafford, was traded to another team. So it really was a difficult year. And I think it shows that it's really hard to get it right. It is so hard to get it right. When you look at the 4 first-round quarterbacks from Baker's class alone, really, there were five, including, of course, Lamar Jackson. 3 of them are starters right now, and 2 of them are not. So the percentages are never that great in terms of hitting on these first-round quarterbacks. And it's basically a cautionary tale for the upcoming draft in a couple of weeks when these teams potentially will draft another 5 quarterbacks in the first round, including potentially 4 of them in the top 5 alone. So if they look at these statistics, it might be a cautionary tale for them.
The other thing that this screams is it's not only the quarterback, it's the head coach, it's the system. So I think when people say, well, Baker Mayfield is doing this because it's Stefanski's system, great. That means they got the system right for the quarterback. That's half of the battle.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. We actually did a podcast on this last week, and we kind of looked back at all of those 14 guys, and I wrote a story about it too. But we kind of looked at all 14 of them to see what went right and what went wrong. And some of them, as you mentioned, they just didn't have the supporting cast. They didn't have the right coach. They didn't have the right system. They were just on a bad team. And a lot of times when you get picked that high, you are joining a bad football team. So that doesn't help matters most of the time. But, there are a lot of reasons why it can go wrong. But what the Browns have gotten right with this, and I think this is important, they have surrounded Baker with every single thing that he needs to be successful. Now they paired that with an excellent head coach, a great offensive coordinator, and they have done so much. An offensive line, which I think that is probably one of the biggest things that they did last offseason, was to get him protected and keep him upright. So they're doing everything right, and it's leading to success.
Yeah, and that was Ryan Grigson, who was the Indianapolis Colts general manager with Andrew Luck, who is out of football. That's one of those top 5 guys. He was the one that kind of told Andrew Berry, let's surround Baker Mayfield with a supporting cast. He knew from experience. So again, points to Andrew Berry for having that voice in the room and listening to it.
Yes, absolutely. And they were there together in Indianapolis when Andrew Luck was drafted and took his team to 4 playoff campaigns and made 4 Pro Bowls. So they were there for that success, but they also learned together that you 100% have got to put all your eggs in that basket. You've got to do everything that you can to make that first-round pick or that number 1 overall pick be as successful as he possibly can be. So it really did help the Browns to have that wisdom from Ryan Grigson and for Andrew Berry to just have that institutional knowledge.
Last thing I'll ask you before we let you go, how important is that offensive line? I mean, and Bill Callahan to what they have done. I mean, when you think about it, Wyatt Teller was a huge question mark. He turned out to be really good. Jedrick Wills switching over, he looked pretty seamless, and I would imagine a second year at left tackle will be that much better for Jedrick Wills. How important was the line? How important is Bill Callahan to what that line did?
So vitally important. They were so lucky to be able to get Bill Callahan. I mean, and the timing was right. I mean, it just so happened that, they were just turning over that staff in Washington, and you are able to land a guy like Bill Callahan, who truly is one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. Everybody says that everywhere you go. You just hear just rave reviews about Bill Callahan. And I think he was tremendous. And that's why I also think that he'll be a key part in why this offense will just take it up a notch in 2021, because they've got great minds like that. And Kevin Stefanski will pull together so many things that he didn't have time to do last year. He didn't have time to incorporate ideas from Bill Callahan, Chad O'Shea, and all of these guys. But this year he will, and he doesn't have an ego, so he doesn't mind giving up a little bit of the control that way.
Mary Kay Cabot, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. We will check in with you as we continue to monitor Jadeveon Clowney. Remember, you can read Mary Kay Cabot, cleveland.com, as well as the pages of the Plain Dealer. We will stay up to date with Jadeveon Clowney and his potential visit to Cleveland later this week. Time for us to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we switch our focus to Indians baseball. Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast straight ahead. We're talking Tribe. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We're going to talk some Indians baseball. Indians swept the Tigers in a 3-game series over the weekend, getting ready to start a series in Chicago. Tristan McKenzie will be going against Carlos Rondon for the Chicago White Sox. Indians have a very hot hitter in the middle of that lineup. Franmil Reyes, 6 of 11, 3 homers, 5 runs batted in against the Tigers in that 3-game sweep. And for Reyes, it's all about the approach.
Same approach that I was using last year when I was hot. Kind of starting loading with the leg kick, the front leg up. Now I'm going front leg to the other leg, like knee to knee, and kind of give me more time to recognize my pitch better. Every time I'm facing any pitcher, and like, it's totally different now how I see the ball, like travel more and recognize that what is hanging, what is away, what is in. It's unbelievable. It's a good feeling. I really don't have like a specifically area like of the field, but as you guys know, every time I'm hitting and I'm hitting homers, it's left center to right field. But if you are just throwing me inside like the Tigers was, I have to make that adjustment. It was fastball ins, and he leave one right there, just put the barrel on it, not trying to do too much, hit it to left, but that's not my focus. Me as a big hitter, I'm trying to always focus in the outside part. If you come in, that's I'm gonna react to it, but my approach is always to the other way.
That takes away nothing from Franmil's approach, because that is a great approach. And if he does that, if he stays with that, he becomes so much more dangerous.
Franmil Reyes, very hot. Let's welcome in Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast. Matt, last time we talked, I said Franmil was giving away some at-bats for me. You were defending him. He looks pretty good right now. I will give you that. When he is hitting the ball like that, the middle of that lineup is much more formidable.
No question about it, Dave. And it was great to see him drive the baseball, especially to the opposite way a couple of times this weekend. When you really think about it, and my brother brought this up on the podcast today, you really have to need him to kind of carry you in the middle of that lineup. When he goes, the Indians go very, very well. So opening day and even the game after that in Detroit, where he struggled really with breaking stuff away. And now he's making teams have to pitch to him. I don't know what that lemonade stand Tiger team was thinking, throwing him fastballs at all over the weekend because he just clubbed them. He's the real deal. And you throw Eddie Rosario before him, Ramirez before those two guys, and you have a very formidable 3, 4, 5 in that lineup. And we'll see how they do now against the White Sox and Reds. Those are better ball clubs they're going to be playing the next couple of days. Yeah,
and again, you have to beat the teams that you should, and quite frankly, they should have beat the Royals more than they did. But the other guy that I'm impressed with, and the numbers don't necessarily bear it out, Ahmed Rosario, has put together some at-bats that make me want to see him in that lineup somehow, some way more often.
Yeah, you look at the center field situation and you kind of shake your head a little bit, because coming out of spring training, you're going, wait a minute, is it really going to be Jordan Luplow and Ben Gamble? Not exactly something that people are rushing to the turnstiles to see. Ahmed Rosario needs to play because he can hit. But shortstop-wise, defensively, they're so much better, the Indians are, with Andres Gimenez there. So now with Ahmed, it's where do you play him? You saw that first fly ball that he took on Friday night that he started in, then went back and made the play. I think Tito and the staff are going to be holding their breath for a couple more months until he really gets comfortable in center field, but he does have to play and have to be in the lineup. Look, you also traded your franchise shortstop to get a haul back. Let's see what Rosario can do. He needed to change the scenery. He's definitely an upgrade from Ben Gamel or Bradley Zimmer. I still think Oscar Mercado is going to get a chance at some point this year. But for right now, you see what Rosario can do. You throw him in that sixth spot and let it roll here.
Another guy that I want to see more of is Josh Naylor. There are spots where he looks like he can be a pretty decent major league hitter, but again, it's got to be more consistent. And if you got to get two of those three guys, Reyes, Rosario, Ahmed Rosario, and Naylor hitting, then you can do something with those other three guys that we've mentioned.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. And what I like that Tito Francona is doing right now is giving Naylor every opportunity to basically play every day. I think the one day that he gave him off was the school bowl game on Saturday against the Tigers when he gave Luplo an opportunity in right field. And I think as we go along here, I think you're going to see Naylor hit against both lefties and righties and give him that opportunity. When he came aboard last year from San Diego, he didn't know the American League very well. He's still a pretty young guy, and they're giving him opportunities, and he's hit the ball very hard to start off. What'll be interesting to see is where Josh plays this weekend with the Reds. Of course, that ridiculous rule where pitchers will be hitting in Cincinnati. That means I would think that Franmil Reyes would be in right field, so does Naylor get moved to first base. That'll be some mixing and matching for the weekend, but you're right, Naylor's hit the ball pretty hard so far.
The other guy that I'm intrigued about to see a little bit more of is Daniel Johnson, and I know he's at the alternate site, but again, that's a guy, when you see him, it's like, this guy looks like he can play. Let's find out if he can.
Yeah, and that's the big question. I mentioned Naylor moving to first base, at least for the weekend. Tito and the staff have said he's going to be the right fielder, and right now first base is Jake Bowers, which I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that, and Yu Chang. So with that being said, what happens if Daniel Johnson, once minor league games start, continues to hit? They want to see Rosario in center. You got Eddie in left. Does Daniel Johnson get an opportunity to come up, if he's ready, play either center or right, and then Naylor comes back to first base if this Bowers experiment, which so far it's failing, continues to fail? So they have some options. There is some depth there that they didn't have a year ago. Remember, this offense was atrocious last year, yet they still made the playoffs. So I think there's still a lot of questions to be asked. It's not like they're lighting the world on fire against great teams yet. Again, let's see what they do against the likes of Giolito. You mentioned Rodon tonight, Lance Lynn on Thursday. Let's see what they do this week. I think it'll be a better barometer than facing that 4A outfit that they saw this weekend.
Well, here's the other thing is we've heard a number of people bring up the question about Tyler Naquin and the start he's off to against the Reds. And my response has been, National League hasn't figured out, do not throw that young man a ball down in the strike zone because he can hit it.
Right.
Elevate everything, right, and you'll see. Yeah. I mean, we saw enough of that to figure it out, and eventually the National League will catch up to that. And Tyler Naquin hadn't been healthy is the other thing.
Well, when he was, Dave, when he was healthy, he hit. I mean, it wasn't like 5 homers in his first 11 games like it is now, but he hit the baseball. But again, 29, 30 years of age, you want to pay him $2-3 million in arbitration, or do you go a little bit of the cheaper route and let some of these young guys play? I don't think that was a very difficult decision. It just so happens to be tribe luck where you let a guy go and he has a monster first week. But again, in that ballpark in Cincinnati where that ball just flies out of there. Yeah. Some guys have done that in the past. We've seen that before where they have hot starts in Cincinnati and then sort of cool off. But you have to be happy for the guy. He gave the Indians everything over the last few years. And some injuries, like you said, when he smashed into the wall in Tampa and his season was over, always seemed to catch up with him.
Matt Dery and I from the Dery Brothers Tribecast going to take a quick time out. We're going to flip things. Other side of the break, we're going to talk pitching. Indians pitching has been pretty good, both the bullpen and the starters. Matt and I will discuss that when Sports4CLE continues. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. We can talk Indians baseball with Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast. Indians getting set to open up a series in Chicago against the White Sox. Let's talk about that bullpen, Matt. It's been outstanding. Best in baseball, just 12 hits allowed, 10th in ERA. And when you talk about the bullpen, Emmanuel Clase has been everything you thought he would be.
Yeah, Dave, when was the last time we could talk about a guy throwing over 100 miles per hour coming out of that pen? Certainly Cody Allen back in the heyday, hit 97, 98. Andrew Miller from the left side, 97, 98. But here's a guy consistently coming into baseball games and throwing 100 miles per hour. That's very difficult to hit. And there's so many general managers and assistant GMs and analytics nerds in the game that just they go crazy for the radar gun. And with Clase, he's got movement on that fastball. Teams are not able to catch up to it. And so right now, that's the guy for the ninth inning. He's pitching with confidence. Didn't really have his A-plus stuff yesterday, yet still was able to get that double play ball at the end of the ball game to get the save. So I like what I see from him. Certainly Karen Chak setting him up. Two guys throwing in the upper 90s. Heck, Trevor Stefan, the Rule 5 guy from the Yankees, hitting 97 on the gun the other night. That's nice to mix and match with some of the more softer tossers that you have that are strike throwers in that bullpen. Gives Tito a nice luxury to have there.
And you know, the other thing with Clase, Roberto Perez is a huge part of that because that 100 looks even more impressive when he's burying the curveball at 90-something in the dirt. And has the confidence to do that because Perez is using his chest to block everything that goes in the dirt. So Perez is a key to those young guys. And the other thing is there's a nice mix with Oliver Perez, and Shaw has thrown the ball pretty well. I know he gave up a run, but Shaw has been very nice addition. Those are guys that have been around and can kind of gather the young relievers too.
Yeah, you know, it's very easy to hop on when I fill in on the fan on 92.3 or on the comment sections on cleveland.com. And just load up on the Dolans and do that whole routine. When in reality, this franchise and organization takes guys back or grabs guys from the scrap heap and resurrects them. Uncle Ruben Niebla, the entire pitching factory that this team has is amazing. Carl Willis, where you can take Brian Shaw, who fans will still boo a little bit because of what happened 5 years ago. But Brian Shaw's velocity is back up. They've got him pitching from up higher now out of the stretch where he starts his motion. And now all of a sudden 96, 97 is back. Whereas last year in Colorado and Seattle, he wasn't topping out he wasn't hit 93. So there's something about what this factory does with these pitchers to find some of these guys. Like I mentioned, Stefan, you said Oliver Perez before, who 2-3 years ago, people thought his career was over, but you put him with the development guys that the Indians have in the pitching department, and all of a sudden you've got yourself some guys that you get second and third opportunities out of, and Brian Shaw's done the job so far. He's going to give up runs. They all are. It's not going to be a perfect season by any stretch, but knowing that you can miss bats and get outs with your staff, that then lessens the pressure on the offense.
Talking with Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast. Rotation has been outstanding as well. Young guys, 5th in ERA in the league, 252. 6th in innings pitched, 50 innings. 6th in strikeouts, 54. Now there's an asterisk by that because it has been the Tigers and the Royals, but still, you can only pitch against the teams you're playing against, and the young guys have been getting it done.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I think Zach Meisel had it up on Twitter this weekend. This rotation is, one of the youngest, if not the youngest, in baseball. And that's fantastic because you got these guys controlled for years contractually. They're able to get better. They want to get better. They want to make money. Shane Bieber's pitching for a big contract. Aaron Savali eventually is going to get paid. So is Zach Plesac. And so we'll see tonight how Tristan McKenzie does in his second first start, but second go-round this season. But yes, the young arms are there. They're plentiful. There's depth in that organization. And again, you don't have to pay them a lot of money. You don't have to go out and spend in free agency to get an arm that might be 30, 31, 32 that has too much tread on the tires. So that's what it's all about. Dave, you and I growing up here, there wasn't that plethora of young pitching back in the day. Imagine this type of staff back in the mid-'90s when then you add in Oral, Hershiser, and El Presidente and guys like that. It would have been unbelievable. And there would have been a ring on all of our fingers. But for now, yeah, you got to applaud what they're doing. I like what Logan Allen's doing. And if anybody gets hurt, they got to bring Cal Quantrill up from the pen. I think he would be ready to go. And there's other reinforcements down in the minors as well.
And you referred to it. It's kind of the factory. They have figured out how to develop and get people to buy into. Well, you get them to buy in because you've seen the success and it's been continual. But the young guys are ready to go when they get their opportunity.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And not all of them are throwing. We'd mentioned Class A and Karinchak and some of these guys out of the pen, but Bieber's velocity is not one of the highest of top 10 pitchers in the game. Savali knows how to pitch. Plesac knows how to pitch. McKenzie tonight, we'll see what his velocity looks like. Logan Allen wasn't hitting 97, 96 by any stretch. He knows how to pitch. And, that whole art of pitching works out. And it is a testament to the organization. And let's hope it keeps up because the White Sox have guys that really throw hard. And they're more big name, big money guys going up against the Indians sort of younger group. So it's kind of a cool dichotomy to check out the next 4 days.
Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast, as always. Appreciate the time. Great insight, Matt. As always, appreciate it. Look forward to having you back here as often as you want. Appreciate it. Thanks, Matt.
All right, Dave. Thank you, buddy.
All right, Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast. That'll do it for us on this edition of Sports4CLE. Tomorrow, big treat. We get to talk draft with Dane Brugler from The Athletic, one of the top draft guys in all the country. Dane Brugler will join us. Mac Robinson, man, I am struggling here. Mac Robinson from the Hurry Up Podcast will also be along. That is tomorrow. Dane Brugler, Mac Robinson. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. That's it for this edition of Sports4CLE.